Can I just say one thing?
Say it, baby, just say it.
I'm standing here staring at rock legend Bruce Dickinson.
The cock and a walk, baby.
And if Bruce Dickinson wants more cowbell, we should probably give him more cowbell.
Say it, baby.
And Bobby, you are right, I am being selfish. But the last time I checked, we don't have a whole lot of songs that feature the cowbell.
I gotta have more cowbell, baby.
DNA, you're in my heart. DNA, you're in every part of my body. Shell as a nucleus, each nucleus is chromosome. DNA, baby, that spells DNA.
Hi everyone, this is part 6 in our study, Does God Exist? What is the scientific research? This is also part 2 in our DNA study. Where did the DNA come from? Did it come just by chance? Was it through the process of natural selection? Was it through a self-organization process? Or was there an intelligent creator?
That we're using in our high-tech computer domain. Bill Gates says DNA is like a software program, only much more complex than any we've ever devised.
So chance, natural selection, and self-organization. What are the difficulties in it? Yeah.
Well, I'd just like to say it is possible to begin by chance, just not probable.
Not very probable, yeah. There's a 1 in how much of a chance?
So the odds of building even a short functional protein by chance alone is 74 plus 40. You can remember how you do this in math? You can add the exponents if you're multiplying exponential numbers.
164.
Thank you very much. Okay? Wow. Now, can anyone get their mind around a number that big? There's only 10 to the 80th elementary particles in the entire universe. There's only 10 to the 16th seconds since the Big Bang. There's only 10 to the 139th total events since the beginning of the universe.
I think the biggest thing that destroys the whole theory is that those materials, when they're created, it has also created that stuff that destroys it.
Yeah.
At the same time, formaldehyde. Yeah, formaldehyde is created at the same time, and that directly kills every single thing that's needed to create one.
Yeah. And then there's also the chance. They talk about this. This is a linear chance, as opposed to a holistic chance. That's a different thing. All of the pieces have to form together in one shot. That's even more difficult, as opposed to a linear chance. It's like you multiply them out. A holistic chance is astronomical because you have to get all the pieces working in one shot.
Let's take a protein of 150 amino acids in length. That's a very modest, not real big one, okay? So we'll do that same calculation. We've got 150 sites with 20 possibilities at each site, 20 to the what power? 150th power. Convert that to base 10, that's 10 to the 195th power. We can't even begin to grasp how many combinations that is. Do you know there's only 10 to the 80th elementary particles, protons, neutrons, electrons, in the whole observable universe? And you're getting some idea of the scope of these numbers.
You did it! Congratulations!
No serious scientist thinks this is the way it happened. It's always going to be more probable that it didn't happen by chance than it did.
Moving on.
Any modern scientist would not believe in that. It doesn't come about by chance. It comes about, in the case of the living world, which is the most striking of them, it comes about by Darwinian evolution, by natural selection, which is poles away from chance. I'm afraid that the gentleman who emailed simply needs to go and read a book about evolution.
The problem with this? Yeah.
It's not alive yet?
It's not alive yet. That is exactly the problem. Okay, natural selection depends upon what's called differential reproduction. One of the organisms that received a trait in the new generation has an advantage over the other organisms who didn't get that trait.
Natural selection occurs, but it's in the opposite direction that they say it is. Because things are starting out complex, but they create things that are simpler than themselves, yet one form is more adaptive at one point than another, and that form stays and then recreates itself without the ability to create the other parts.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, it's the dog theory that one of them starts, and then a short-haired dog doesn't survive in cold weather, but a long-haired dog can't survive in hot weather, and so they die off, but then they become separate, yet they can still come back together. So I think natural selection exists, it gets rid of information instead of creating more.
Scientific way for that would be like through meiosis, because like when the cell replicates its DNA, it can either make it perfectly or it can screw up, but it can't make it better.
Right, and it can only make a copy of itself.
Right.
It can't improve
so
upon
it can't
itself.
improve, it can only degenerate.
Guy is walking home from work, and he falls into a big hole. So he thinks to himself, and then suddenly gets an idea. He says, no problem, I'll just go home and get a ladder, and then I can climb out. So he goes home, and he gets the ladder, comes back to the hole, jumps in the hole, and climbs out. Okay, what's the problem? Yeah, how do you get out of the hole? He's begged the question of how he gets out of the hole. Okay, and that's the same logical problem that's beset the idea of prebiotic natural selection.
Moving on.
We have chance, natural selection, we both killed those down. How about self-organization? Self-organization basically says is that there are some forces within the organization of itself that causes it to have order and causes it to have information. And I really like the example that they gave on the one scientist that I believe was a contemporary of Albert Einstein, but talking about how words that are printed on the page does not govern the words. So you won't have the same page. Like if I have 2 sheets of paper and I have different words on that or different letters, the page is not what governs it.
I first encountered Kenyon at a conference in 1985. I was a young scientist, and I came in off the street to this incredible conference about the origin of life. And Kenyon was a very well-known person because he'd written this book, Biochemical Predestination. At the conference, he was explaining why he had come to reject his own ideas about the origin of life, why he thought his own theory was completely wrong. Kenyon had come to realize that the critical question wasn't the origin of proteins. It was the origin of the information in DNA. And he realized that there was no way that you could have forces of self-organization explain the arrangement of those characters that make up the digital code. And let me explain why. Let me give you an illustration that I thought of when I was the first few years of teaching. My kids were little, and they were always spelling messages on the chalkboard with these magnetic letters. And so I've got a message here. Can everyone read it? Self-organization, okay? Notice that you have a force of attraction that explains why the S here attaches to the chalkboard. It's a magnetic force, right? But are there any forces that explain the arrangement of the letters in this message? Okay? You're shaking your heads no, but we can demonstrate that, can't we? Because we can simply rearrange these and create some gibberish very quickly, and we've got the same physics and chemistry, but now we don't have any information. Okay.
Did you hear that?
When he talks about the formation of elements in a molecular compound or whatever, that's usually formed because it's the most energy efficient form for that amount of elements in one situation. Because that's just its form because it's the most energy efficient. And I think you could say that because DNA is already not energy efficient. It takes energy to put it together and to maintain it. So it already isn't the most energy efficient form for those things.
Yeah, it's not a simple structure. Yeah.
No. DNA has no way of taking energy in for itself. It has to have a cell to
for it.
So
it is not self-reliant.
Yeah, so you would have to have an entire cell form at once to function.
Yeah.
So chance, natural selection, self-organization, or intelligent design. Which just seems to be the most reasonable way to explain the creation of DNA? What does the scientific evidence actually point to? Rather than making a statement of faith, we must know the scientific evidence for ourselves. So join us next week for Lesson 7 or Part 3 of DNA, Information and
Performance so scrumtrelescent, I can barely move.